We don't know. My mother was from a different father, and we don't know what happened there. He came to the kindergarten, said, "I'm your father," and she was flabbergasted. And she went home and she told her grandmother, and her grandmother, she was close to her grandmother, and her grandmother said, "Don't tell your mother, she'll be upset." And then he came again and he wanted to talk to her, and she ran away. And she never knew what happened. Why wasn't he given parental rights? And were they married and divorced? Were they not met? What was the story? So that's a secret that my mother carried with her forever and never knew. Everything's always was hush-hush in those days. We don't know what were the circumstances of her birth. And that's a shame, because why wasn't he allowed to see his child? I don't know what the story was there. So that she talked about with me every once in a while. And when her mother died, she had his name and she called, and they didn't know anything about another child. He had already died too, but she spoke to who were her siblings, and she explained it to them. She said, "We don't know anything about that." So she dropped it. So that was a family secret that will remain a secret forever. But I know my mother had something, but it didn't define her. She was very well adjusted. She just wondered, but she didn't dwell on it. It was always there a little bit, I guess. I don't know whether she was formally adopted. She went by the name of her stepfather, and I didn't know anything until he died. So the Jewish people wear like a little black ribbon when they're in mourning, and I noticed she wasn't wearing a black ribbon. And I said, and she said, "Because he's not my biological," and that was wrong. She should have been wearing it anyway. I don't know who the rabbi was that did that, because he was like her father. That was not right. But that's how she told me the story about the kindergarten and the father that came to see her, and she hadn't told me that before. Well, I was only 12, so there was no need to say anything before that. That was one of the mysteries that we'll never know. So I could have cousins somewhere, you know. I wonder if he had other children. If he didn't, I don't know. And I had an aunt, and the aunt once said to me, "Your biological grandfather was a very, very fine man, very, very learned and very nice." And she said we were all very fond of him. And I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "I don't know." All she said was, "Just want you to know he was a very fine person." I don't even know why she brought that up to me, but she did. She was my mother's cousin. I had a cousin, and I was saying, "Do we know for sure?" We don't. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and say she was, but why was he not given parental rights? Why didn't she carry his name? You know, we began to think about it afterward. You know, we were talking about it one day, and I said, I don't know. Give my grandmother the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was married. If she wasn't, I'm not going to condemn her for anything. Maybe something happened when she was very young. Who knows? But I just don't know why he was denied seeing his child, and she was denied him. I can't figure it out. But things were so different then. Now everything's an open book. Everybody knows everything about everybody. But she was very close to her grandmother, and her grandmother didn't want to betray her daughter, so she just said, "If he comes again, you just run away. Don't upset your mother." So my mother listened to her and wouldn't talk to him. She regretted that. She was 6 years old. What did she know? 5 or 6.